Happy Monday, everyone. So
Yes.
here we are, 5 o'clock on the dot, a thriving conversation. We are having a special guest, Soledad, or known as Anna, or Soledad, depending on which environment that you know her from. But she's going to share with us her story and about the hope that she gives to lots of women in the circle of, I'm going to let her explain it. And many women's that can find her story inspirational. So we're having her today to tell us about her story and how she helps other people, give hopes to a lot of people that in the theme of April, that's what we're shooting for. So today is Monday, and Sarah again is going to help us kick off the conversation with introducing who we are and what we do over here. So Sarah.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody.
Hi.
Hello. I'm so glad that we are here again. And let me get back to my screen. Okay. let me kickstart this show today. Um, to save us time, I'm just go very quickly. I'm Sarah M. I grew up in Cambodia. I gone through a very challenging time in my country when the communist Khmer Rouge took over and they turned everything upside down. But thank goodness I was able to survive while 2 million people did not make it. So I am so sad, but at the same time I'm grateful. So I was able to escape and finally escape out from Cambodia and end up in this beautiful country and meeting so many wonderful people. And I finally got a chance to write my book, and this is my book, How I Survived the Killing Fields, and it's available on my website. And now to to share more story, I am going out in public as a speaker, inspirational speaker. So if you ever plan an event and need an inspirational speaker, reach out to me or my partner Lee here. We both can help you. And I guess Anna Soladad, she can also help you. So we are all speaker here. That's all I want to say today. I can't wait to hear the story from our guest today.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Hi, my name is Lea Tran. If you are new to this, I don't know, Facebook Live, we call it a show. We don't call it a podcast, but we're here Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. And I'm also part of the former refugee that came to this country about 40 years ago. And my background's so slightly different than Sarah's. I came from Vietnam, which is a country that neighbor to Cambodia. And I also came out with the mass exodus that everybody knows as boat people. So we just kind of like dive out to the sea and hoping for rescue. And that was 40 years ago. And I too am recently published my memoir to tell my story because every one of us, I think, have a story and we need to tell to the world because we don't want to just leave it on our chest and die with us. And I think the power of the story is so powerful when you actually have something that you can inspire other to give hope to other that what you've gone through so they can be so you can encourage them to do the same thing. So I had a TEDx talk 2 years ago that I tell a little bit of my story and then my book, and now my son read my book and he's more curious, so we had a podcast called Family Roots. So he has a platform for him to ask me a lot of questions that he still think that he didn't understand from reading the book just yet. There's a lot of things going on in the complexity. But today we have beautiful Anna Soledad come from a different country with a beautiful accent, and She has also her own story that I'm hoping that she will share with us, and how she used that story also to help other people. So we all do this by speaking, and we're here to speak up. So hopefully, if you are part of the people who has story that who want to tell other, I hope you are also being encouraged to do the same. So, Soledad, how are you? Thank you and welcome to our show.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you, Sarah. You both are such a remarkable woman, and I feel privileged to not only be invited, but to be among yourselves. And the story that I'm about to share is not my story, but it's the story of women who enable me to do something, not only about my own circumstances, but about their circumstances. And both gave us tremendous hope and tremendous power in healing our wounds, emotional and psychological wounds.
That's so beautiful. But what motivate you to do what you did? Because a lot of people hear story and they feel powerless in helping. But what really motivate you to use those story and then turn it into some useful tools for other women to thrive on?
Well, for me, it happened in a way that it was very subconscious, and yet it was very palpable that it was happening. At the time, I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and I was living in San Francisco. And before I get into that story, let me just give you a little background about who I am, where I come from. I am originally from Puerto Rico, and I migrated to this country in the 1973.
Mm.
And I went to live to Palo Alto, California. And I lived there for 18 years. And it was at that time, at the very end of that time, that I became very much aware of my friends who were suffering from AIDS. And if you know anything about the
Yeah.
history of AIDS, San Francisco was one of the cities where that hit the hardest because the population or demographics were in such that it was not only gay and lesbian, but there were people who were not gay and lesbian. It was everybody. And I, at that time, had a lot of close friends who were dying of AIDS,
Mm.
artists, ballerinas, actors, painters. I was very involved at that time with the San Francisco Opera, raising funds for them, that sort of thing. And at that moment, I did not realize that I had a scaffolding to hold me together through those experiences of loss. And I began to discover how they began to deal with their circumstances through drawing, singing, dancing, even as weak as they were. So I thought how magical that was, how empowering that was to them. And it was at that point that I made a big transition in my life and I decided to go back to school. So I went back to school at the age of 33 and I ended up going and attending Smith College, which is a private liberal college in Northampton, California. And I designed my own theater
Wow.
project. And I wanted to work with women who were in crisis. And in this case, I work with women in confinement. In my specific project was with women who were in a halfway house.
Mm.
I encourage them to tell their stories and for us to create either a tableau, which means you narrate and people behind you will create images, or a narrated like a monologue or a dance. And this was a very interesting process because I spent many months thinking about what question could I formulate so the women would be willing to talk about those experiences. And I remember at the time that Picasso said, everyone has a creative child within them. It all depends how you allow that child to remain within you
Mm.
when you grow up. And I knew that these women, at one point, they were little girls. And so I formulated the question, at what point did the little sweet girl become an angry woman? And that was so important to me because I was not passing judgment as to their
Yeah.
present circumstances. They find themselves in a highway home. Obviously, there were some horrendous stories
Yeah.
behind them, but I just wanted to give them a vehicle of healing.
Right.
And I found that through dramatic work. And by doing that, I asked them to narrate one specific incident that they felt that the little girl, sweet girl, stopped being sweet, began to be angry, began.
Mm.
And those narrations, I will technically deal with them by grabbing the adjectives and the nouns, and I will enable them to do workshops. Like, for instance, I will ask them, give me your feeling about the word love. And there will be someone that will just cuddle
Yeah.
or do their heart shape or something. But there was one woman that went like this.
My God.
So for her, love was being beaten. You know, someone who beat
Yeah.
her, someone who straightened her out.
Wow.
That's how she articulated that. So you can imagine how remarkable that experience was for me to hear, for me to witness this, and for me to give them a vehicle. And the way I set it up, it was the woman who will tell the story will be sitting with me and will be directing another woman to reenact her story, do it in a monologue form or do it in a tableau form or a dance. It was just unbelievable how this woman grew and healed and began to talk. And that's where I sort of became completely convinced that we need more art in our lives to heal, whether it's drawing, whether it's dancing, whatever, but to allow ourselves to find a creative vehicle within ourselves to let that child come back,
Yeah.
live again. And in that vessel, we can then heal and we can be powerful about how we lead our lives.
That is incredible. I have to say, what a brilliant way to help people express their feeling through art. The way I see you describe, I can see those women and I can see the tableau, I can see the dance, I can see the gesturing. I can see how people can let themselves go in a sense that they're feeling out. And I love the brilliant way of how you get them to go back to their childhood at that point, which point that they have turned into a person that is not sweet anymore. And many times that I think that we don't take the time to reflect, to go back to the point that where we have been treated differently that turned us to a person that we didn't want to become. And I hear you because coming from an Asian society, I have seen a lot of domestic aggression. And sometimes that's just a form of expressing love from parents, from spouses, because they didn't know how to express it the right way because they're growing up being taught that's how you express love, by disciplines, by going harshward, by insulting, by doing things that are just like really tramp you, like make you feel like this big, and nobody give them a chance to express their true human being nature. And I love the part that you have bring them back to their childhood and let that child be free again. That is just so beautiful. I wanna say that what you do is phenomenal. I really love it, and no better way to bring to people that who felt so hopeless, so helpless, so no way out, and now they have a way to express their feeling. And I want to thank you for doing that. That is just so. Oh, I have friends, like I said, that who also help women to express their voice and tell their stories through art. I mean, art is a great form of expressing your feeling without hurting any people. I think that's the part. So how do you work during COVID? I mean, how do you bring those talents into the time that we are confined? Not those women, but us. We are confined, sort of.
Yes. No, unfortunately, I have not been able to do the work during COVID for obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But what I have been able to do is do quite a bit of awareness, like what we're doing now, talking to other people as to discovering and utilizing art, any art expression as a
Right.
vehicle for us to heal. Because during the pandemic, we have all have been hurt in
Mm-hmm.
some way or another. We're wounded. We're walking around wounded. And we have felt hopeless at times because of not only the events that happened to ourselves personally, but what happened to others and
Right.
how we stand ourselves to others. That has all kind of created this communal hurt, this
Yeah.
communal wound that we all need to heal, and we need to find a path of hope and a path to joy again.
Right.
And art is the best way. And in saying that, and this is essentially why I want to leave this conversation, is I want to leave it with the most basic and broadest definition of art. Art is a form of communication.
Mm.
Is That's all
Agree.
what it is.
Yeah.
Then how do we go about determining what vehicle will serve best for us to express our feelings, our thoughts, our self? It's a wonderful way right now for us to think, how could I, even if you just do a drawing, even if you go and do ikebana, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
Japanese floral
Yeah.
arrangement.
I love ikebana.
Exactly. If you
Yeah.
find yourself a vehicle, allow yourself to say, what can I do that it would be something creative, that it comes from me, that I can play with,
Mm-hmm.
that I can play with, and I can let that inner child come out.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime we engage in activities that we allow the child within us to come, we're reborn,
Right.
we're healing, we're allowing true healing into our life, and we're empowering ourselves once again with new energies, new focus,
Right.
new way of looking at our circumstances that will enable us to be creative, to be imaginative, but more than anything, to be giving to those and loving to those in a way that is very constructive and very, very rewarding.
And how many times, how many workshops in order for you to see the transformation between these women that we start to healing and become a different person and the way they express it differently than when you first met them?
Mhm. Well, it all depends in the particular confinement that I find them. If I meet them in jail, or if I meet them at a safe house, or if I meet them at the half, halfway house, they have a certain time allotted for them to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So depending upon those circumstances, I will design a workshop. In safe houses, even if it's just one day
Mm.
and 2 hours with one person or the child, they can take that with them, and in the future allow, it's almost like you leaving a
Yeah.
seed and
Right.
it germinates
Yeah.
and it allow. The idea that you are able to
Mm-hmm.
change your circumstances, that idea alone, it begins to germinate in your
Right.
spirit in a
Yeah.
way that is very powerful. So through my simple workshops, I can allow them to discover that for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Let me give you one example. One of the women that I met in jail, she was literally covered with hatred. And by that, I mean, she was covered with tattoos. And you can tell by her face and her mannerism how hard life had been for her.
Yeah.
And in the exercise that I gave her was, I gave her a very long uh, piece of cloth, and she has to stay about 10 feet from me on the corner, and I will play music, and she will have to move that tablecloth
Mm.
that table piece, that cloth, in any way that it moved her. But
Mm.
whatever way it moved her, I had that cloth pressed against my my stomach, my abdomen. I
Mm.
had to feel it there.
Oh, wow.
Well, she initially was trying to get out of a, what do you call it, another therapeutic kind of, they have groups, meeting groups, therapy groups. She was trying to get out of that group in order to be in my group to have
Yeah.
fun and do nothing. And I told
Right.
her she needed to do the work. Well, I played any music, hip hop, jazz, swing, everything. And then when I got to Swan Lake, Tchaikovsky, classical music,
Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
I don't know what happened, but she began to dance, to flow. It
Wow.
was just like it. I mean, it's just beautiful how she began. And then I just let it play for another 5 minutes, and then I lowered the volume and I stopped. And then she was lying down and I just let her rest. And then she lifted up her face, began folding very delicately. The folding came to me, and then she said with the most unimaginable, innocent face, she said, I never knew I could be a ballerina.
Tchaikovsky can pull that out from you. Yes. I love classical music. Oh, yes. Oh, my
But you need to
goodness.
understand is that these women who have never been exposed
Yeah.
to that
Right.
kind of music,
Right.
suddenly she discovered that within her. I did
Yeah.
not give it to her. She allowed herself to feel the music, to feel, allow that art form to enter her
Yeah.
heart and spirit, and then to take on. And that's it.
Wow. You found you found the edge. You found the exact place that, oh my God, yeah.
Well, I discovered what I could do to enable them to do what they needed to
Right.
do without
Right.
imposing that on them.
Right.
That's so important.
Yeah.
No judgment. No,
Right.
this is something that you can do. Would you like to join and
Right.
do it?
And this is beautiful because, like you said, the way you describe how harsh she looked, her demeanors and her physique, and now she's turning into a swan, ballet dancing. So that is just phenomenal from one transformation to the other. Um, wow, that is powerful.
Another phenomenal thing that happened was that they began to ask for dictionaries
Mm-hmm.
because in writing the stories, they want to make sure that they spell it right.
Yeah.
So they began to educate themselves.
Right.
And it was just remarkable. But more than anything, they have the voice and they
Yeah.
have the vehicle to heal. And
So, do
that's the
you
hope.
work with other women beside the confinement women? Do you take this
Oh,
art and
yes.
go outside?
Oh, yes. I recently, in 2015, I did at UUC, I did a workshop with a mother and daughter. Her mother was abused when she was an adolescent, and the daughter had just finished completing a 5-year mandatory sentence because her boyfriend was dealing in
Yeah.
in drugs. And they did the poem Phenomenal Woman by Maya Angelou. They
Mm-hmm.
both did, and they ended up with dancing Respect with
Wow.
Aretha Franklin. So they took the poem, each part of the poem, and they both reenacted that. It was just really remarkable. And they were my neighbors.
Wow.
And then,
This is very. I think this is very intriguing the way that you're doing it, and I just love how you're using art in such a clever way to get people out of their own trauma, because I think many of us, I think Sarah and I have our own sort of background of traumas, and sometimes people don't want to share because it's not something that's glory, that's not something that some people are proud of, but being using the art vehicle to get that out of their system is really phenomenal, and
what,
thank you
what
for doing that.
what's important to understand about art is that it gives us an ability to create a world. Because
Mm-hmm.
the moment we start doing anything like this, we go into a trance, we go into a world.
Yeah,
And that's the discovery.
that's awesome. So what's your recent project now?
I am trying to work with, there is there is one group of women, excuse me, that have asked me to work on the pandemic, of course, the effects of the pandemic and how we have seen this complete, which was kind of troubling to think that people were not willing to put a mask in order to so we are looking at different news reels and incidents that happen and use some of the words and see what we can create a tableau and a narrator, sort of like a newscaster narrator, and then the people in the back creating images about the pandemic and how people responded to the recommendations, to the CD recommendations, how people, when you hear about another women hitting an elderly in the face when they ask him to remove the mask. I mean, that's just was very troubling. When you heard some people saying, well, it's just me, the other, I mean, there was just so many areas that we felt so powerless. And so
I don't know about Sarah. I really have an urge to invite you back and do a workshop with us.
All right. Well, we can talk.
I feel so strongly that you probably can come up with something fun that people can join us, maybe for a 45 minutes or an hour workshop eventually sometime in the future. I don't know, Sarah, maybe we can find a time slot in June or sometime, because I love the idea. I think this is so powerful in many ways. And it can be so creative in a sense that people don't even know what they have within them, that they can actually heal themselves by doing the thing that you were just talking about.
Yeah. So with that idea in mind, do you need to do it in person, Soledad?
Yeah, can we do it in Zoom?
We could do something in Zoom, and in fact, you both might be the subjects. You both might be the one who do the workshop. And
I have to say, I am a very creative person. I love music. I love art. I love sewing. I love cooking. I love all those things. So art is
I just got to ask you to give me a little story about an incident, and and out of that, I'll do a workshop, and we workshop the words, and then you see the magic.
Wow, this is gonna be transparent, nerve-wracking.
No.
But I have plenty of incident. I don't know. I wrote a book, and if you like, I would send you my book, and maybe you can see why I'm talking about what I'm talking, because it is just you have put exactly where this a place right here about how powerful that could be for transforming somebody.
Well, thank you. If I can heal myself and heal others, because their healing is just as much as mine, because we all walk through life with so many wounds and so many little experiences that have hurt us so deeply, and yet we think we're healed, and yet we're not. So whenever we have a vehicle of healing, let's do it.
Yeah. I mean, we need a lot more healing power in this world than tearing things apart, right? I mean, sometimes an innocent word that not carefully thought through can put a scar in somebody's for a long, long time. So healing is whatever we should be emphasized on. We should be more careful and craft it a lot more often than the words of nastiness.
We need to be kinder, practice more compassionate kindness.
Absolutely. I want to say thank you for what you do, and I really feel like this is a great way to express your true feeling. And I love the part that you're not only confined to just one method, but you are in drawing, dancing, music, storytelling. Like it seems like you poetry, you have covered pretty much every single aspect of the arts, and I really impressed. I am really impressed. So yes, with that, I know I have a lot more questions, but our half an hour is up, and I don't know if Sarah have any more questions for you. But like I said, I would love to find a way to create maybe a special program or a special something to invite you back, because I really want to learn some of that. I think this is just so powerful, not to get to know you and get to know what you do.
Well, thank you
So,
both for inviting me. I am very privileged again to be among two extraordinary women.
Oh,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much.